Well, we've just had the running of the Paleface Adios Stakes, brilliantly won by Better Be the Best, trained and driven by Nathan Turnbull. And how appropriate that a Turnbull has taken out the Paleface Adios Stakes. Of course, the Pike family associated with Paleface, the Turnbull family associated with Hyundai Grattan. Two great competitors, two great families. And I'm joined, and I'm delighted to be joined by one of the Pike members, Keith Pike. Well, Keith, this is an absolute delight to catch up with you tonight. The Pike family are here in force to celebrate and remember the great deeds and life of Colin Pike, Paleface Adios. And of course, let's not forget Shirley, but great to see you here tonight.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a great night and a great race.
It was a great race, and Better Be the Best. Nathan Turnbull, and as I just mentioned in the introduction, Keith, those clashes between Paleface Adios and Keith Pike, Tony Turnbull and Hyundai Grattan have gone down in harness racing folklore.
Yes, certainly would be. And it's just such a coincidence that Nathan, on last Tuesday, won the Col Pike Memorial in Temora, and now he's come out and won the Paleface Sprint here at Menangle. So it's sort of rubbing the Paleface and that history into the Turnbulls, who were always our opposition.
And what great days they were too, Keith.
They were great competition in those days, yes.
Let's have a chat about, first of all, Colin. What made him such a special talent?
Well, he was always so modest it never went to his head or anything like that, you know, and it was always, well, I say as it's all pretty easy when you've got a great horse like Paleface. He's sort of, what would you say, you know, he's the one that all the limelight is over, you know, so, yeah.
What made Paleface Adios Paleface Adios?
Well, I'd say, you know, like, not many horses are good right through their career. He was good as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, right through till the finish. And not a lot of horses do that. They might come good as 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, or something like that, you know, but not too many are good right through their career.
Not only was he good throughout his career, Keith, but he went everywhere. They travelled together all over the place.
Well, I think that's why he's so popular, you know, like everybody knew him with that baldy face, of course, which was a great advertisement. And, yeah, he was just so popular and everybody knew him through his persona, you know, like just by that baldy head.
His days at Harold Park got off on a sour note. I was there that night. He had that fall.
Oh, yes, yeah. That could have been the finish of him. Yeah, that was something else, yeah.
Keith, his record in Miracle Miles alone, let's forget about all the other wonderful deeds, 7 Miracle Miles, and as I've said for decades, that record will never ever be beaten. To contest seven Miracle Miles, as you all know, you're in 2 of them, is just an amazing feat.
Oh, well, it is, yes. That's what I'm saying. That's how he was good for so many years. He didn't have a really bad season. He was good for most of his career right through.
And to do that, Keith, Colin must have looked after him with tender loving care.
Well, he was one of the family. He was spoilt in lots of ways, but yeah, he was so quiet and placid. He was just you wouldn't ever known that he was a stallion, you know, like he was so placid.
You drove him in 2 of those Miracle Miles, second to the Scotsman. What a night that was. Hardly anyone will ever forget that particular night when the bagpiper came down the Harold Park straight when the Scotsman won.
I remember it well.
Yeah, for all the wrong reasons.
Yes, that's right.
What do you remember of that particular race, Keith?
Oh, yeah. It was one that I think he was unlucky not to have won, sort of thing, you know, because he led most of the way, and yeah, it was just Scotsman. It was his night, sort of thing.
He did win a Miracle Mile, but as you just said, he was unlucky on that particular night. There was 1 or 2 other occasions where he probably could have put his head in front where it mattered.
Yeah, well, that's always the case, isn't it? And that's the beauty of racing, you know, like sometimes it's your night and sometimes it's not, but yeah, he had a good night most nights.
Keith, Colin had Paleface Adios, Keith Pike had Just Too Good. What a horse he was as well.
Yes, he had his moments. Yeah, he ended up winning 54 races, I think it was, and yeah. No, it was good to have the two at the same time, virtually, you know, but he never raced till he was a 3-year-old, and yeah, he was just, didn't have quite the brilliance as Paleface had, but he was more of a stayer, you know, so.
The longevity of horses trained in the country, they just seem to keep on keeping on. Paleface, Just Too Good, Hondo, Adios Victor, all those great country horses had long and sustained careers.
Yes, well, we looked after them pretty well up in the bush. Yeah, and you wasn't racing, well, I suppose it was pretty tough competition most of the time, but yeah, you spaced them out and looked after them while you had them. You knew you were lucky to have them, so you look after them. Yeah.
Keith racing has certainly changed since your days of going around at Harold Park, and with Keith up against Tony too. But who was your toughest opponent?
Well, the Turnbulls, of course. Tony, like, he was always a tough competitor, very tough. And when we went to Western Australia, they are tough over there because they don't care who wins it over there, as long as you don't. Us Eastern Staters. So we found that probably the Western Australia was probably as tougher racing as any of it. But
Keith, what do you think of racing now, 2024?
well, it has changed a lot. There's a lot more sprint racing. Yeah, seems to be a lot more emphasis on the sprint shorter races rather than the longer distance, is what I see of it, you know, but I haven't kept up with a lot of it in the last few years like we used to, of course, but yeah, it's got, the shorter racing tactics doesn't come into it like it did when we were racing.
Well, Keith, harness racing fans of our generation and right up to now that remember and know the deeds of Paleface Adios, thank you to the Pike family for what you have done in harness racing. You and Colin, along with Just Too Good and with Paleface Adios, you've given thousands and thousands of harness racing fans so many wonderful memories they're going to cherish forever.
Thank you very much for all that, and Shirley would have been quite proud to be here tonight too, but she just can't travel anymore, you know, like age is catching up, and she would have loved to have been here, of course, but yeah, she's just not a good traveller anymore.
It's good to see a strong representation of the Pike family just the same, Keith. Wonderful to catch up with you.
Thank you very much.